Hi everybody, welcome back to Beautiful British English. My name is Paul and today's lesson I want to share with you a great way that you can describe the past using used to. Welcome back. So in today's lesson I want to show you guys how to use used to correctly. There are a few different forms of this and it's important to understand the difference between the forms and what they mean. So for example, we have used to, we have used to, and we also have to be used to. Okay, so these are, although they look very, very similar, we do actually use these in different ways. So I'm going to start by just showing you a couple of example sentences. So example number one is using just used to. Okay, I used to want to be a pilot, but now I'd rather be a teacher. I used to want to be a pilot, but now I'd rather be a teacher. And this is a good example of using used to talk about something that was true in the past, but is not true now. So in the past, when I was a boy, I used to want to be a pilot. Now I'm older, I don't want to be a pilot. So it was true in my past, but it's not true in my present. So that's the first reason why we use used to. Now I've got two more examples here. How's London? Have you got used to the rain yet? It rains a lot in the UK. No matter how many times I see it, I will never get used to the beauty of Rome. Now, you can see that in both of these cases, have you got used to the rain yet? I will never get used to the beauty of Rome. These are not describing the past. These are actually describing the present. And we're using a slightly different form. We're actually using the to be used to form in this case. Now, to be, the verb to be can be replaced with other verbs such as get and become, which makes it a little bit more complicated. But whenever you see, say, used to with one of these verbs before it, you know it's not describing the past, it's describing the present. Third example. We didn't used to get on with our neighbours, but we did used to say hello. Now I've used two different forms of used to in this sentence. We didn't used to, which is we use used to, so we drop the D when we're using it in the negative. So it's not we didn't used to, it's we didn't used to. Okay? So used to is the negative form of used to. Just so you know. So whenever you're using didn't, you drop the D and just use used to. Okay. Now another thing that I've done here is I've used a verb before used to. But it's not get, it's not become, it's an auxiliary, the verb do, in the past form. So this is describing something in the past, and we use did in this instance to emphasize, to add extra emphasis to something that happened in the past. So for example, I could say, if we go back to this first sentence, I could say I did used to want to be a pilot. That would add extra emphasis, extra meaning to me wanting to be a pilot. Okay. So if you see did, you know did is adding emphasis to the statement. Finally, we used to visit lots of museums when we lived in London. Okay, we used to visit lots of museums when we lived in London. We don't live in London anymore, so we don't visit lots of museums in London. Now in this instance, this is describing a past habit, and you can actually replace used to with would. We would visit lots of museums when we lived in London. Okay, so used to could also be describing past habits. Right, So there are 4 different reasons why we use used to, and what we're going to do now is just explore each of them in a little bit more detail. So let's make a start with taking a look at using used to and its negative form, used to. I used to want to be a pilot, but now I'd rather be a teacher. Grammatically, whether you're using used to or used to, you have used to plus an infinitive. Yeah, so you will always see this structure. Used to or used to plus a base infinitive verb. Now, we use used to in this instance to describe something that was true in the past, but now it is no longer true. So, in the past it was true, now it is not true. Things have changed. So, I used to want to be a pilot when I was about, 7 or 8 or 9, but now, when I'm an adult, I would rather be a teacher. Yeah, so it's describing something that was true in the past but is no longer true. Yeah. The negative of that, I didn't used to want to be a teacher. When I was 7 or 8, I didn't want to be a teacher. Yeah. Who does when you're 7 or 8 years old? Who wants to be a teacher when you could dream of being a pilot or an astronaut? Yeah. So the negatives, when we're using didn't, we drop the D, so it becomes used to, not used to. Yeah, and this is basically describing the exact opposite of the first example. Something that wasn't true in the past, but now it is true. So, I didn't used to want to be a teacher, but I do now. In the past I didn't, but now I do. Yeah? So I hope that makes sense. The first example of using used to is describing something that used to be true, that was true in the past, but now isn't. The negative form is something that wasn't true, but now is. Hope that makes sense. Now we can also use used to ask questions, to interrogate. And we can use positive or negative sentences, didn't you or did you, but in all questions, it makes no difference whether you're using a negative didn't you or did you always use used to. Okay, so if you're asking a question, you would always drop the D and just use used to. So, didn't you used to want to be a pilot? Yes. Did you used to want to be a teacher? No. Okay, now let's move on to discussing using to be used to talk about familiarity or to becoming accustomed to new things. Now we can use be, or we can use verbs like get or become. Now also our grammar is going to be slightly different here as well. So we're going to use used to, but we're either going to use it with an ing verb or a noun. Okay, so there's no base infinitives here. It's either going to be a gerund or a noun. Now, just take a look at these examples. I work in a hospital ER department, so I am used to working long hours. I am used to working. Here's your ing verb form. I am used to working long hours. So this sentence is basically saying, because of the job I do, I work long hours, I have worked long hours for a long time, so for me, it is okay. I am familiar with working long hours. I am okay with it. Yeah. So this is actually describing something that is true, in a sense, now. Yeah. So this is not really describing change, it's describing a change that has happened in the past. I have already become used to working long hours. But we can also use used to describe how somebody might have to change or to become familiar with something new. Yeah. So when I started working in a hospital ER department for the first time, I had to become familiar with something new, such as working long hours. So for example, If you move to London, you will have to get used to the rain. Now that is presuming you come from a place where it doesn't rain very often, and you move to London where it rains almost every day. So you will have to get used to the rain. The rain has to become familiar, and you have to become accustomed to the rain. Whereas I come from the UK, so I am already used to the rain. I'm already used to it. In fact, as I'm making this video now, outside it is raining, but for me that's okay. That's a regular, normal occurrence because where I come from in the UK, it always rains. Okay, so be, get, become, there are probably a few other verbs that you might see used as well, with used to, with an ing verb or a noun. And finally, let's just take a look at using our auxiliary verb did to add extra emphasis to a statement. So did we will use with used to plus an infinitive form. So for example, I did used to live in London. So did here is just adding more emphasis to the statement. I used to live in London. I did used to live in London. It's just more emphatic. Yeah. Same here. I used to want to be a pilot. I did used to want to be a pilot. More emphasis. There's more passion or emotion in the sentence. So I did used to live in London. I did used to want to be a pilot. So did allows us to add more emotion and emphasis to our sentence. Now, in a negative sentence, we use didn't. I didn't used to want to be a teacher. So in this instance, didn't is not being used to add any kind of emphasis. It's only being used to create the negative, the opposite of used to. It's just being used to create the negative. There's no extra emphasis. There's only extra emphasis added with did. Okay, so I hope this little tutorial has been useful to help you guys use used to and didn't used to and to be used to more fluently, and I hope you understand it just a little bit better. If you have any questions at all, contact me and let me know. Otherwise, I will see you all again soon. Bye for now.